What's up, YouTube? All right.
BRS 360, or
I don't know.
not BRS. Ryan's 360 update. It's been a while since I've donned the old 360 hat.
It's been a couple of months, I think.
Yeah.
Has it been that long since we've done a live?
I think so.
I know it's
History of's during November.
Oh, holy cow.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
So Christmas, all the stuff, kids are born,
busy.
all kinds of crazy stuff
Busy
going on.
life.
All right, so a couple of things. You're going to hear some great news today. Brand new series coming tomorrow. I'll tell you about it in a second.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a whole bunch of updates on the 360 as well. Not just updates, but like
Things
kind of what we learned.
Yeah. There's a lot of, it's amazing how much we learn still today.
Okay, so no matter what you do, when you implement it, you'll say, should I have done it that way?
Yep.
And you'll hear that today. I don't know. You're going to learn all kinds of stuff like that. I will tell you though, part of the reason you haven't seen this, I gotta stop using this for like I have too many kids all of a sudden. I don't know. It's just weird for me because before I had kids, like, you guys got like 100% of my attention.
Right.
It was like business focus,
Yeah.
work-life balance, like this. Right? I don't know. Like life is starting to creep in.
Yeah.
I got to stop using that excuse though. But also last year we were running 100 miles an hour. For those who don't know, we nearly doubled the viewership of our total views in a year of BRS TV.
Yeah.
So like almost 2 times as many people learning about aquariums last year.
That's awesome.
I don't know. So it was a monumental feat though.
Exciting.
You probably saw the sheer amount of content that's like coming out from everybody.
Yep.
So we're gonna start picking up the pace again here soon. So starting tomorrow, hopefully we can get back to like videos every day.
Yeah.
Or close to anyway.
We've got like a whole week and some change worth of content coming up starting tomorrow.
All right. So before we get to the 360 content here or updates, I'm gonna tell you what's coming tomorrow. So a friend of mine and some other people had just said, you know what? Instead of doing more in 2021, like what are we gonna do? Like instead of every day, we're gonna do like 3 times a day? That's a little too much.
That's a lot.
How about you put some effort into quality over quantity? And I can't wait to see what the community thinks about quality over quantity, or they want quantity over quality, or what.
If you've been watching like Ryan for so many years and you've watched our content over the years, it's almost like a slap in the face of the difference of what's coming out starting tomorrow. But it's super interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. If you follow Facebook, you're seeing little samples of it, but the end result
The final
totally
product.
different.
Yeah.
Another bit of quality over quantity you're going to see is right over here. We're putting in a new tank, and we're building a brand new set as well. You can't see it yet. But,
So you won't see us standing in front of the 160 every time, or in the Red Sea Max with the table every time. Like, we're going to switch it up, make it look cool.
Yeah, I don't know. So the inspiration a little bit is actually the cool gear that's in my basement. You know, so that wall that's in my basement with all the tricked out bling. Kind of build that into a set too, and a big brand new tank and stuff. So I don't know. You'll see that.
Heck yeah.
All right, but tomorrow, what you're going to see is, I was kind of inspired by, if anybody has ever seen one of these things, it's called Masterclass.
Yeah.
Like you go learn like everything there is to know about like.
Morgan Freeman's on there. There's Neil deGrasse Tyson's on there, and just the way that they talk about like a subject is super interesting.
So I tried for, if you guys remember, like 52 Weeks of Reefing, and it's like, hey, wow, I'm yelling at you, it's coming out so fast, and so a lot of that was like, I wrote all the information, tried to perfect it, make it perfect, and wrote a script, and it's kind of like a teleprompter thing. I'm writing all this stuff, but I'm like reading at you, and like part of the excitement is you just turn the speed up. But this one, man, threw the teleprompter away, and I'm just giving it to you, kind of the way that like it feels to me.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah. I've been doing this for 17 years. I'm certainly not perfect. I make mistakes. You'll see some of them today. But if you're asking me, what I would do, this is what I would do about this specific thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to like get a little consciousness stream, this will be it, and it'll start tomorrow.
So in our playlists and stuff, you'll see we've already taken a stab at some of these masters things. Like we did master your water chemistry, master like UV. There was a few other master ones out there, kind of in that same realm, but this is different.
Totally different format. So
Completely
you'll have to see tomorrow to see it. So, all right. So going on to 360. Hopefully, I can't wait to, if you guys check in, tell us how much you hate it, how much you love it. I think there'll definitely be a certain audience that likes it and a certain audience that doesn't.
Oh, and there's, if you guys haven't been following, like the 360 you've been updating almost a weekly, maybe sometimes a couple times a week and so in the description you'll see a link to Ryan's Facebook page. That's where a lot of the behind the scenes 360 stuff comes from.
So just, sorry to let you down, but I don't have time to produce a full YouTube video, but I do have the time to stop in the morning while my car's warming up here in Minnesota and shoot 10 minutes of what happened today on the tank.
Yeah.
So a lot of that you're actually going to see today, you know.
Little recap.
Just little things that follow a BRS TV guy on my Facebook, and you see kind of like what's happening today.
Yeah.
And you'll see some of that information today.
All right, lessons learned.
All right, so I got a hard stop here today at 1:30. I got to run because my kid's got to go to the doctor, and like I got to be there.
It's got to be a dad,
watch the other kids. So I got a hard stop. So I'm gonna try to get through this stuff. We got a bunch of topics today. If we don't, man, we'll get to it next week. I want to give time to really share some of these things because there's been some revelations here. All right, so first one is let's just show some of the fish here. So you know the lights are on. Tank is you know nearing the end of this ugly stage.
Man,
Rock
those are
will
vibrant.
be ugly for a while, but like it's not like you know covered in film and stuff.
Yeah. You got your utilitarian fish.
Yep, got the tangs in there. And I got an angel actually in there. 3 tangs and an angel. I got the cherry antheas in there, the yellow or the Hawaiian antheas. Everybody's out now. You see the little box that I had them living in.
Yep.
They're gone. They're out. They're living good, and nobody's trying to eat them.
Which is a part we'll get to here sometime today about those fish.
I don't know. There you go, some fish. So that was actually a post I made the other day. So, all right. So one of the other posts I made recently was this question. Answering this question, and this one's been building for me for a long time, like for 10 years.
Right.
10 years ago, like ish, I looked at a tank that the skimmer just wasn't working. And I'm like, man, there's so much food going in here. Why is the skimmer producing nothing?
Right.
And I had this like thought, is it because the filter socks are pulling out all the food and there's nothing left for the skimmer?
Well, and then we followed.
Passing thought, let it go.
I mean, we kind of followed up on that thought process of like you did a BRSTV investigates on how often should you change your filter socks, and in the 3 times a day, it's taking up 40%.
If you're in the same boat and your skimmer's producing nothing, doesn't work at all, pull your skimmer sock or your filter socks and tell us what happens. You know, does it all of a sudden start working? Because you're going to hear an experience today that's exactly what happened for me. Not exactly that way, but kind of close. And so over the years, though, we've been doing roller mats. We did that experiment with the filter socks. We did a bunch of different things, and we've the story's been building. And this was actually happened to me the other day. So this is the skimmer here, and again, this is just a post of it, but it pulls out like probably an inch of skimmate every day or two, and it does its normal thing. It's absolutely working.
Some thick stuff on there,
right? And then here's the roller mat thing. So that's like a fleece roller, just rolls all the poo right out in kind of real time. But this could also be filter socks just as easy that you manually change. They're going to be the same.
100% of your water turnover goes through either filter socks or the mat.
Yeah, so it's just the same thing. All right, so here's what happened the other day. So I pulled out the filter media, I turned it off and rolled it up so water wasn't going through it.
Zero going through the
filter. And I did that because I was dosing some Microbacter 7 to the tank, and I didn't want to like pull the cysts out in the felt. And I don't know if you really need to do that or not, but I just
why not?
I wanted to remove that from the equation. All right. Immediately, skimmer goes awesome, man. Like I couldn't believe it. The next day, it's like kind of bubbling and stuff because there's so much skimmate coming out of it. I empty it, and then like 2 days later, it's full again. And it's not like full like with water. It's producing the same thick skimmate as it was before, but now just 5 times as much.
This is day after pulling filter?
Yeah, like right away. And so here's the thing: is it like all that happened is, I'm not rolling the poop out of the tank and the uneaten food with the roller mat anymore. and now the skimmer gets it.
I wonder what the breakdown time is on like fish waste and food and into a protein form that you can skim it out.
Well, the skimmer, like we talk about that in terms of the skimmers always pulling out proteins and stuff, but it also pulls out like particles
there are
of
chunks.
Food.
Yeah. So when
It's
you
a
see
little more
a
broken
piece
down.
of fish poo going, poof,
You're not seeing an
and blow
extra
up.
shrimp float up there, but
Right,
you know,
right.
close.
That makes sense.
So, you know, here's the thing, is what I realized is, and I mean, this is Bill's story that's building. And I'm like, man, that is absolutely, you know, what I have expected to see over this period of time, which is that, man, I'm rolling the turds and the food right out of the tank the moment that they're created almost.
What's
of
left?
course,
What's left?
the skimmer doesn't have hardly anything
Yeah.
left over. And
Yeah.
in fact, that was the exact advice that I got from Royal Exclusive as well.
To size your skimmer down because your filter is being so effective.
So I think the same thing advice that goes to filter socks. If you got filter socks and you're going to change them out every 3 days, you need a smaller skimmer than if you don't.
Yeah.
I absolutely
I
believe
wonder
that
how
in this
many.
case.
I wonder how many people's skimmer problems that would solve.
Probably a lot.
A
And
lot.
pull your socks out and find out. And so the answer now is, the question is, what is more valuable? The filter sock or the skimmer, right? And because I spent $600 on a skimmer, or even $300,
Naturally.
I naturally want to believe it's the skimmer,
Yeah,
right? Because it can't be the $3 sock.
That makes sense. It's justification for your purchase.
This all depends on every single system,
Right,
how you
right.
maintain whatever. But if you ask me, if somebody was asking me for advice and I wanted to give them what I truly believe, I think the filter socks and felt are in many cases more valuable than the skimmer. And here's a couple reasons why. A, we found out in that experiment we did that it pulls out enough organics that it's pulling out 40% of what would eventually be phosphate.
Right,
in that
we were
experiment,
testing, yeah.
Right? So 40% less phosphate if with the filter socks.
Just through filter socks.
Okay, just with filter socks and changing them out every 3 days. I don't have to like have the wonky maintenance of a skimmer. If like it's working, it's not working.
Just this
I
way,
adjusted
just
it,
that
I
way.
didn't,
Error,
whatever,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
with all this other stuff. The motor slowed down, sped up, whatever. Just a sock, take it in, take it out.
Yep.
It's just so simple and cheap.
Cheap.
And it just works as long as you keep the stuff suspended, which means you need decent flow to get it down the overflow.
True.
But
yeah.
I don't know. I think in many cases, I would say that if you maintain the filter sock or use something like a felt roller mat or whatever, you're going to see that it actually pulls out more waste than the skimmer does. Blasphemy, I know, and part of the reason that I haven't said it after this day. But I just believe this. And so, you know, you can share your own beliefs, I guess.
I mean, that just makes a case for investing the dollars in. I mean, I'm not going to change my filter socks every 3 days. There's just no chance that I'm going to have the gumption or the will. I'm going to forget all the time. But if I'm going to spend $600 in a skimmer and I start to think that, you know, this filter floss and roll is more effective and it's probably a better investment, I just spend the money on a roller or something like that, and then even save money on buying a smaller skimmer.
All right. I was in your case.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes facts, like, change the way that I approach things, right? So here's the deal. If you are pulling out 40% or near half of the organics and then resulting phosphate before it becomes phosphate and nitrate in your tank,
Right.
Via changing out the filter socks twice a week, like let's say Wednesday and Saturday or whatever,
Yeah.
that means half the water changes versus not doing it.
If you're using water changes for that purpose too, right?
Yeah, versus if you're doing water change, but in general.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's true for you,
Can I make a schedule where no matter what, I'm like an alarm on my phone, Mondays and Thursdays?
well, let's say I was doing 10% water changes weekly,
Right.
And I wasn't doing the filter socks, and everything was fine.
Right.
What if I were to tell you this week, if I just changed out the filter socks on Wednesday and Saturday, I wouldn't have to do the water change this week?
Every 2 weeks.
Because I removed half of it, I only need to do 2 a month now.
Yeah.
Now, you got to balance this to your system, of course. It's not like one size fit all answer. But if I'm removing half of that waste, and by the way, it's not just nitrate and phosphate you're wasting, you're removing. There's all kinds of impurities that come with fish food.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of things in that
fillers and-
animal
yeah,
that
yeah,
come
yeah.
in. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's a reason why like top animals have the most pollutants, and these things just build up in your tank. You know,
Yeah.
like certain fish you can't eat because there's so much mercury. It's not because of that things die. It's because of the way that things build up over time.
Right.
You know, and eat this thing, ate that thing, and that thing. All right. So If that's the question of like, could I do less water changes? Then yes, I will actually change out the filter sock on Wednesday and Saturday and skip it on skip the water change on Sunday. And what I would do then is buy 24 filter socks that cost $3 a piece and wash them all at once. You know, so I'm like, I do a couple months at a time. Like, make it easy. I'd also probably plumb the thing in a manner and put the sump in a manner that like I can just reach in, grab it out.
Yeah, you gotta make it easy.
Like maybe a place to even throw it right in there so I'm not carrying it across my living room, dripping all over the place.
Easier you make it, the better.
Yeah,
the more your chance you're gonna do it.
I don't know. You guys can make your own decision on that one. That's been my experience. And that the roller mat here, and by the way, I don't look at these as a roller mat versus a skimmer, felt, whatever. These things are there to help each other. And especially like if I have my filter socks and I'm not changing them out because I went on vacation, now the skimmer picks up the weight, right?
That's true,
Or I feed a bunch of stuff or, you know, whatever. So these things are supportive of each other. It's not necessarily either or, but you can understand like why they work and how they work together. All right. So next thing here was, the fish food thing. This was actually, I don't even know. We could spend the whole day talking about this. I don't know. This was super interesting. So I'm going to show you what I've been feeding here, and it'll probably change over time. This is just, I'm looking for easy in the beginning. I don't want to like, you know, make all my homemade fish food for 5 fish in the beginning.
That
makes
sense.
I will,
that makes sense.
We'll, definitely down the road here, but like right in the beginning. Also, I'm looking for tiny little pellets for tiny little fish and stuff. So I don't know. All right, so these are a couple of things I'm feeding right now, just because they happen to fit a couple of things. So those PE pellets I was feeding, the reason I fed those is actually because they're like a bigger size pellet, and the cherry anthias actually went from eating krill to eating these really rapidly, so I just kept feeding them. I brought home a whole bunch of stuff. Actually, we had a whole box of fish food that we used for a fish food video here. And I brought it all home and tested them all and found out what they like to eat. I also, these specific fish like to eat. I also use this Seaweed Extreme because I just don't have time to, you know, rubber band nori to a rock and put it in the tank the way I want to. It says even on there like a little, I just noticed this little label on there today. It's like very first like nori based pellet. You know, it's like 68% nori. It's a way to get this type of nutrition into their diet, and it's on an auto fish feeder.
Yeah, it's clean. I don't have to mess with it.
Yeah, the waste doesn't clog up all the pumps and stuff.
Have you fed your tanks and seen the nori, just a big chunk of it go off and then float down the back and gone?
Yeah, it's way easier. I don't know, that's for me. Even when I go to feeding the homemade frozen food, I'll probably continue to feed these pellets on an auto feeder because the fish love them, and it's just a really easy way to get a large amount of algae into algae-eating fish's diet. The other one is this one here, which I don't have a good reason as to why I use it. Otherwise, there was tiny little pellets. It's like Dr. Bassler's food, and Lou over at Tropic Marin sent me like a couple cases of this stuff, and we're like, well, rather than try it on you guys, I'll try it on myself.
Did that have the protein and fat content and all that breakdown on it too?
It does. Yeah. I predominantly was feeding the Hawaiian anthias this because there's tiny little pellets, and it was just came in a nice, convenient little jar. And I don't know. There's no good reason. I'm gonna get more into it because they actually seem to. Everything seems to really like it. That isn't really good enough for me because you know, it's like you could say that about any fish food. Let's get beyond that.
They're hungry.
That will be at a later date. But this is the piece that came out of this that I think is the most interesting, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. So people ask all the time, what is the right nitrate and phosphate level in your tank?
Yeah.
I mean, like endlessly, and nobody ever gives a satisfactory answer.
It's all over the board.
Yeah, and it's just like always kind of protecting your back.
Just not zero and not super high.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I mean, the person asking this is actually looking for legitimate advice to the best of your ability. They're not looking for you to protect your back, man. They're asking you for a reason, and they trust your, you know, like position for whatever reason that is.
Yeah.
But none of us are willing to do it because nobody knows the magic answer.
Right.
There isn't like a totally magic answer, right?
Number ratio or something.
To the best of our ability, experience, we can add that in, right? All right. So, like roughly speaking, you know, nitrate to me, like hasn't really proven to be super detrimental as and you get into the low single digits, like 1 through 5. I don't think there's many people out there that say that that is going to cause a catastrophe in your tank.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is thousands of times higher than it is in the ocean in terms of like inorganic nitrate or nitrogen in the water, but it doesn't seem to. You can't really limit many growth things with that without like hitting true zero, which is like impossible to measure for in a reef tank. All right, so I don't know. You can say 5 parts per million nitrate, and I'd probably shoot for 1 if you're asking me. But if we're at 5, I wouldn't tell you to like go fix it immediately. Maybe turn back down. Right. Phosphate, on the other hand, totally different thing. Phosphate can absolutely inhibit algae growth or pest growth, but also zooxanthella's algae. So I don't know if you really want to inhibit
Keep that thing low. Yeah.
Probably don't. It's probably like an emergency hammer solution to big problems. But the problem is that phosphate poisons the calcium carbonate crystal. Right, so
now you're inhibiting growth too.
Yeah, it attaches itself to the calcium carbonate, and now all the new calcium and carbonate coming up says, "Oh, I don't like that area," and floats off instead of attaching. Layman's terms. So in that case, we're finding like I read a bunch of like peer-reviewed like scientific journals where they're showing like in polluted waters that have as little as like 0.1 phosphate, calcification slows down 40%.
Whew.
Okay, this isn't the kind of thing you can really measure in your tank because you're like, oh, I don't know, how come my tank doesn't grow as fast as Jerry's tank?
Right.
I don't know.
But the nitrates
but I do know it's probably phosphate.
In those polluted tanks, nitrates are probably sky high then.
Actually, I probably do know. It's probably phosphate and probably pH, 2 things that are really overlooked just because survival is the goal, not necessarily optimal health, right? And as long as things survive good enough, right? Well, I think we're evolving past that. But phosphate, like 0.1, man, 40% in some cases.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a lot, especially when it's compounded.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of growing an inch, it only grew a ½ inch, and then you see the same thing scale up. Before you know it,
slow arc to growth.
2 years, Randy's tank's filled out, looks awesome. It took me 5. You know what the hell? All right. So like phosphate matters.
But you came to realize this by testing your tank that had. You had no like filtration and something going on. You weren't attacking nitrate. In fact, you just kind of letting it all go.
Okay, so in my tank, I'm dumping food in like crazy because one of the other things I learned about 360 gallons is you dump the food in like a lot. You're like, oh, that was a ton of food. Gone. Like, it just blows all over the tank.
Some of the fish get it, some of them don't.
Yeah, so it's actually hard to get the right amount of food in there, especially for like those little yellow anthias, which really don't like to swim very far away from their territory.
Right.
And so like I try to throw it in there, turn the pumps off and everything, and it just like floats away, you know. Like, and then if I do it too much, then the bigger fish come in and scare them away, you know. So it's just like a balance. But I'm dumping tons of food in here, and this is another conversation that we'll share, but like we haven't done water changes on this thing ever. It hasn't seen one water change.
Oh, that's true.
Not a single one. It's been what, like 7+ months?
8, yeah, I think the first episode with the dry tank going in was 8 months ago.
Okay, so, you know, like let's contribute this to the bare bottom, to the roller mat, to the skimmer, to all that stuff, because the refugium largely wasn't online until recently.
Yeah.
Or the algae reactor. 5 parts per million nitrate.
That's what you tested at.
For, you know, multiple times a day feeding, auto feeders, blasting this thing. Not so bad.
No.
I don't know, it was lower than I thought it would be, you know.
And the only 2 things of filtration.
Yeah. Phosphate, though, 0.5. Right.
And we just said 0.1 could inhibit coral growth by 40%.
That's 5 times more than that. Too high.
Corals wouldn't grow.
Yeah. All right. So here's the thing, though, is that's a 10-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is the same thing as a Redfield ratio.
Yeah.
Of almost all living organisms in the ocean. Now, it's 16-to-1 nitrogen to phosphorus, but if you break that down to nitrate,
like
phosphate,
nitrate and phosphate, it's like 10-to-1. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, like, well, A, I'm not going to tell you to go chase the Redfield ratio, but what I will say is that's interesting that my food collection of the food that I'm adding must add about a 10-to-1 ratio of nitrate to phosphate to the tank.
Just the food alone.
That's where I ended.
Yeah.
You know, at 5. And
So
0.5.
I dump food in, it breaks down, and just the type of food that you're feeding breaks down to a 10-to-1 ratio naturally. Huh.
I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But
So
then,
I wonder if there's foods out there that don't break down to that.
yeah,
that
definitely.
ratio.
There's a different one, and we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
Different foods probably have different ratios. But what I thought about then is like, well, so if I told somebody like, hey, you could have 3 nitrate, no problem, you know, I also kind of need to tell them that 0.3 phosphate is okay
probably a
then
target,
too.
yeah.
Or I need to tell them like, hey, no, you need to have 0.05 phosphate, really,
Which has
low,
been
which is
understood for a long
probably
time.
below 0.1 is
Right.
probably a good goal. But then that means if I'm going to let my nitrate go up,
There's now this
it's in
20-to-1.
Yeah, it's just going to get the deviation.
25-to-1.
So I'm going to have to use chemicals, being like, you know, lanthanum chloride or GFO.
Attack one of them.
Yeah, like played mad scientist, letting one go, pound the other one down.
Right.
Okay, well, that doesn't sound good either, right? Like, I mean, it's also doesn't sound good because there's kind of hammer solutions there, but also, like, I don't know, it's just more complex. The more crap you have to use, the harder this is, and the more chances you get it wrong.
Flipping switches all over the place.
Yeah. Okay. You know, and all of these things too add stuff to the water, like lanthanum chloride's going to add, you know, hopefully it precipitates all out, but like also it's going to add presumably lanthanum or whatever impurities that come with that. Or GFO is certainly going to add iron to the water, almost certainly. Anyway.
Right.
Like you're going to add something always with the other stuff. So like these solutions, I don't know. So instead, if I gave you a really distinct advice and said, you know what, I think you should have 1 part per million nitrate and 0.1 phosphate and try to stay below that. Well, if you stick to that, no more mad scientists.
Well, so how do you stick to that without adjusting in one? One could be food choice that breaks down into that.
Feed less.
Yeah. Another could be, if you think about like the fleece and you think about the skimmer and you think about a refugium, all 3 of those both filter the nitrate portion and the phosphate portion. So it's hitting them both at the same time in equal amounts. If I draw food out with the fleece, I've just drawn an equal amount of nitrate and potential nitrate and phosphate out. Same with the skimmer. Protein's going out in equal ratios, and same thing with the refugium. It's sucking both of them up at the same time. But if I hit GFO only, or lanthanum chloride only, or carbon dosing only, I'm hitting 1.
So the easiest way to do this is feed less. There'll be less nitrogen and phosphorus, and it'll be easier to maintain 0.1. Feed less doesn't mean starve your fish either. It could mean just as simple as use the feed mode, and so it all turns off all the pumps, and it all just kind of sinks, and they get all of it,
right.
or most of it,
instead of walking by and just tossing
so you
something
could feed half the amount of food and still get just as much food to the fish.
Right.
It could be feed different types of foods. It could be all kinds of things. Also, it can be up your filtration game. Start changing out your filter socks more often, or maintain your skimmer better. It can be different things. It's really easy to hit this 1.1, right? Okay, so there's another alternative. Let's say you don't want to do any of that, and you just don't care about nitrate. It happens to be that's the way that you're going to approach your tank.
Right.
Let nitrate go up to 10. Maybe you don't care. But I do want my phosphate because that piece about poisoning the calcium carbonate crystal is legit. You can go look it up. This isn't a hobby-based thing. It's proven in the ocean everywhere, man.
Right.
Just accept it. It's true. Okay, so, and I care. Maybe you don't care because your tank's totally robust, filled out like this one where growth is actually now the problem. I don't want any more growth now. But if you're in a newer stage of the tank, you're also kind of trying to make sure you're not creating a nutrient battery, like that just feeds pests if they ever take off. Lower. Well, pick a food that has a different nitrogen to phosphorus ratio than I've been using. And there are options, right? And so notice a lot of the foods I'm feeding are all dry pellet type foods, right?
Yeah, and you're getting a 10-to-1 out of them.
So
frozen food then would probably,
I found if you look at frozen food has way less phosphorus in it, way less than the dry foods. So I don't know the exact ratio, but instead of 10-to-1, it could be 20 or even 30-to-1
in a pellet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the versus pellets or dry
versus
foods.
pellets. Yeah.
So, like, if you just don't care about nitrate all that much, but you do want to try to keep phosphate down, frozen foods probably your best way to do it.
Well, and you think like those frozen, we're feeding natural animals that are in the ocean, and the ocean already has that natural balance. So these prey probably have some of that natural balance of nitrate to phosphate potential in them.
Presumably.
Yeah.
But a lot of the foods we feed are freshwater mice and shrimp and stuff like that, you know. But also there's uptakes in your tank. So this is a balance of the input as well as uptake. So there might be a certain type of algae or organism. It really doesn't matter. You don't have to go into that because you can just test. You know, if this week, if I started with 0 and 3 months from now I have 5 and 0.5, well, I know it's 10-to-1. I can just equate all that. I don't need to figure out what the food is because it probably won't be that on the export.
Right.
It's just that I can choose something that has less or more than one or the other. And there, sadly, you won't go and see nitrogen and phosphorus phosphate ratio
on the packaging.
On the packaging.
It's not going to be there. Yeah.
What you can do, though, is look at the ratio between protein and phosphorus, which is on most of them. So, and it won't be an exact ratio. Don't go looking for 10-to-1 or whatever. But
right.
if you're trying to look at one food versus another one, which one will have
phosphorus level? Yeah.
Just to figure out the ratio between the protein content and the phosphorus content, and you'll figure out which one of these foods has a lower amount of phosphorus. And so, for those of you who know, I think phosphorus is often added to a lot of dry foods as a preservative, maybe as a component of vitamin C or something. But so just note that probably the reason that the dry foods have this is just because it needs it to be preserved.
Right.
On
Binding,
a shelf stable.
Yeah.
Frozen, you don't need the same thing. All right, so that was an interesting piece that I learned. A long-winded story. You can actually control that ratio by choosing a different fish food. So go ahead and try.
Interesting.
And also the advice of 5 nitrate and 0.1 or lower phosphorus. Also, that advice better come with the fact that it means you're also going to be dumping phosphate remover of some sort into your tank to achieve that.
Right.
In most cases. I mean, some tanks will stabilize around anything, but you'll probably see perpetually rising one and not the other.
Yeah.
All right. So, next thing here. This is actually a water change. Part of the reason why this is taking so long.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're talking about water changes now, and it's never been done on the 360.
This is a still of the video on Facebook.
This is one of the reasons why.
Us fighting with getting this stupid cords through. I got the Toons Aqua pinchers there.
Oh, yeah.
You might ask why we're not using an actual tool to fish wire like a normal person would use.
I asked if you wanted me to climb up there in the trusses, because a little guy like me can probably squeeze in there, but I didn't know if I was going to come back.
Forever. I'd have Randy living in my ceiling forever. It's because there was a plywood sheet in the middle of it, and there was 20 feet maybe, or 15 feet we're going to go.
Yeah, so you have to go 20, you have to go like 5 feet in, then through this small hole, then 20 feet across, but we finally got it.
Yeah, so we fished all the auto water change lines through there.
We got you a big reservoir.
Reservoirs in, whatever. Water changes are
it's on
imminent.
The cusp.
Yeah, imminent. Yeah. We got to calibrate it, and then it's done.
We got to hook water to it.
So just so you know, it's probably a 400-ish gallon system. I got a 160 or 200 gallon.
Yes, I think it was 210. 210 gallon reservoir.
So I'll be able to do a effective 30% water change once a month. I'll probably spread it out either by push button and just walk up and have it do it once a week as needed, or I'll spread it out over the day. I haven't decided, but it'll change out roughly 25 to 30% once a month, and all I got to do is fill up the thing, and just dump a bucket of water and some water, and
good to go.
Good to go. So it will happen soon. So the reason it hasn't happened yet is because the fish really don't care about the phosphate, and 0.5 phosphate and 5 nitrate ain't gonna affect the fish any.
Yeah, and you're I mean, you're not really seeing like a nasty growth output.
Algae did not exist.
Well, and that goes back to your filtration too. Like you have some good filtration in there.
All right. So the next thing here is there's a little film of me talking about how hard the cycle was here. I think. Oh man, I don't know if this film
just a screen grab of it.
Hopefully it did. Is there another?
You can't play.
Well, show me talk. Anyway, so we were talking about it here. I was talking about how hard the cycle was and the dry rock and whatnot. And so I gotta tell you, I just keep forgetting how difficult sterile rock and a bare bottom is to cycle.
And we learned that lesson in the WWC BRS hybrid series, and that was one of the biggest takeaways was a bare bottom first year is going to be difficult. We're 8 months in.
Don't appreciate the importance of that statement. I mean, harder. What is harder?
Yeah, until you're
harder
actually
means
doing
like, dude, it takes a lot longer. I don't know. I'm into this for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't in a hurry or anything, so it doesn't really matter. But and also I found a differentiator here too. The worldwide team told us, or the way they do it anyway, it's just. Ugly stage and outer. We'll turn the lights on. Turn them all the way on.
Just get through it.
Get through it.
Power through it.
I did that on my tank, man. Yeah. And no. It went totally sour. And the reason I think that the difference there is most of the time when Worldwide's doing this, they're doing it with established. It's dry rock. It was at one point, but it's been sitting in.
They've got a bin of it somewhere, and they're putting it in a tank.
Yeah,
it's almost ready to go.
It's got all kinds of biological diversity living on that rock. It's not just waiting for this one thing that happens to thrive on photosynthesis, and as soon as you give it to it, it rapidly explodes. Right. So in my case, that isn't the case. This is dry rock that has not been in the ocean, or there's really no source of biological diversity in there. So I'm going to tell you, I think we got a video of what it looks like. Is that the next one there? Yeah, let me see that one.
Ugly brown.
Okay, so this tank, this picture won't show you how bad it really was, honestly. So I turned the lights on, and after 3 days, there's just this serious cloud, and it was worse than this, actually.
And that's not bacterial cloud, is it?
No, I don't know. It was green, man. It was like I don't know,
almost
pea soup green by the end of the day.
Type, yeah.
Right, and so I believe, and it really doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong here, I believe it was dinos. And the reason I believe that is because it would populate throughout the day, and then at night it would go away, and then in the morning the tank would look pretty good again. Not really all the way, but it looked decent.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, it was terrible again.
Did you see the telltale dino signs though?
Yeah, and you can't really see it in this photo, but there was brown slime, man, all over the rocks, you know, and it doesn't really matter if it's dinos or not. Who cares? It was bad. It was not desirable.
Right.
All right. So this is what I did. First off, is I turned off the lights.
Cut the lights.
Just cut the lights, man.
Well,
Turn the lights off for a week.
It seemed to be photosynthetic, or
100% it was.
100%.
Because then I turned the lights off for, I don't know, I think it was a week or so.
Yeah.
And maybe it was only 3 days even, actually. I turned it off. Tank looks awesome. And then I turned on the UV, because I don't think the UVs were on at this point.
Right.
And I turned the UVs on, turned it on, and the tank looks awesome again for 3 days. It just takes longer. And after a few more days, starting to cloud, UV's definitely slowing it down.
Yeah.
But then eventually punched me in the face. And it got right back to where it was.
You're not curing the ugly brown with UV sterilizer. You're not completely knocking it out.
So what I found is so one of the reasons people ask all the time, why for protozoa and ick and stuff do you have this really low flow rate, and then why for dinos and bacteria, and by the way, there's 8 million dinos. Everything has a different optimal.
It all comes down to how fast they replicate.
How fast they replicate, and I gotta tell you, from 9 a.m. to noon,
replicate like that.
It must have been replicating at the speed of every 10 minutes, man. I don't know, 'cause bacteria does that, you know?
Yeah.
And so, if you're at say, I think my flow rate on is 1,300 gallons an hour. All right, well, 1,300 gallons an hour is actually on 400 gallons is only once every 20 minutes. So it's actually going to slow it way the hell down like it did.
Right.
But it's not going to stop it if it's replicating every 10 minutes. And we're making these numbers up a little bit.
Right.
But It did. It slowed it down. And then what I also found was when I turned the lights down, the UV totally worked. Like when I stopped providing so much energy, I was putting 200 to 50 at a 350 par over the whole thing.
Yeah.
As soon as I slow down the energy going in, where the organisms aren't replicating as fast, all of a sudden UV works again.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting to see the parallel between these things. All right. So what I did do though, because I talked to all my mentors, all the people I look to when I like, hey, I can't figure this out. And have a lot of conversations here, call Elliot, call all my buddies. And everyone had the exact same answer. Dude, it's dry rock, it's sterile, we haven't put any, like type of biological diversity in here. Then as soon as you provide all this wealth of energy from this light, the photosynthetic organisms are going to explode, and if there's nothing there to outcompete them, let it go.
And they got a huge fuel source. You have 5 nitrate and 0.5 phosphate.
Yeah, actually, you didn't see those nutrients like plummet like that.
All right.
It's interesting.
That is interesting.
So I think it was the energy from
just the
light, man. Because you take away the energy from the light, the nutrients.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sure it's part of that, but I've never seen anybody starve out dinos with nitrogen and phosphorus before. Because it's one of those things
that's a good point, because that was one of the, in the forums and all this, when we were starting to figure out how to cure dinos and whatnot, and a lot of it, people thought it was nutrient related. Well, your nitrates or your phosphates are too high, and then we come to find out that, that's not the answer. Dino's still there. Different strains of it. They react differently. Interesting.
All right, so this is what I came down to. So you can either add a bunch of rock from an established tank, which is no problem. There's a bunch of it here, and I think I can find some rock that I'm not worried about adaptation and that kind of stuff, right? But I got all these expensive fish that are in there or going to be in there, and
you have to pick one.
Dude,
or the other.
that rock, man. There's not a tank in here. This tank hasn't had a problem with,
that we've seen
any ick
pests
or anything like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not in there.
Yeah, that's true.
All of it's just a chance. Probably is in there. It's just we're taking care of the tank proper, and it's not having huge, stress events. So none of that stuff shows up. We feed it proper.
Management on this one.
Yep. All that kind of stuff. There's a UV is running on it. All kinds of things. So I don't know. I can either add rock and take that risk, but all that quarantine stuff that I had Elliot do, just throw it in the trash now, man. I can't do it.
Can't do that.
Do it. So I thought about this. I went to this one. The Microbacter 7, right? It's 7 cysted strains of bacteria. It's $17. I'm gonna tell you my personal opinion on this at this point. I don't know.
$17.
I don't know, man. I come from a world, from 17 years ago, we were really cautious. I'm so worried about snake oils, and we really need this. Everybody wants to sell
the results.
me stuff.
Yeah.
Like a magic elixir.
If it didn't do something right now, it didn't work.
Okay, then what I've also figured out by now is that process leaves so much progress on the table.
Yeah.
If only thing I can see it with the eye and know it for sure, well, then there's so many things that are absolutely beneficial that we can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, never will.
Yeah.
I'm leaving progress on the table. So part of it is cost and effort and risk, right? So I'm looking at the Microbacter 7. I don't know. It's I've started these tanks of bacteria before, but and I look at them and a lot of these Insta-tanks I did actually did have bacteria because I Insta-tanked them and threw tons of corals in right away, which introduced all that stuff.
It had bacteria on it.
Yeah.
There's diversity there. Yeah.
So it came from somewhere, and so probably it's part of the reason why I didn't have those problems. Also, bare bottom, whatever.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I talked to a lot of people, again, that I trust, and all of them said the same thing, Microbacter 7. Now, I'll be honest, internally we've tested this stuff on some things, and sometimes yes, sometimes no, really. But every system, man, has so many moving levers, right? I don't know, but the people that I trust that have run into the exact same problems that I've had said, use this stuff, it will solve it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I did.
And it did.
I used it I turned off the UV, I pulled the fleece thing off, and I dosed the stuff for 2 weeks. Problem totally went away.
And you shut the UV off at the same time too?
Yeah, UV is off. I dosed it, problem totally goes away. And you know what? Bottle cost $17. So this is my current position. It is absolutely, if anybody asked me what to do, I would tell them go spend the $17 too.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't cause any problem. Did it for sure be the absolute proven, peer-reviewed, 100% science told me that Microbacter 7 solved my problems in my brand new tank?
No.
Nope. But do I believe it did? Yep.
For $17, it's worth trying out. Like, if
dude.
you've got a problem, hey, try it out. $17.
I'm gonna go farther than that. I'm like kind of hedging my bets to like just say, oh, it's only $7 to try it. I actually do believe it solved my problem.
Yeah.
And if somebody else was having a similar problem to me or asking,
First thing you'd recommend.
And in fact, now I would go the other direction. It would be part, especially with a bare bottom sterile dry rock tank, it would be part of my initial thing before the lights go on.
So as a part of, so if you go think back to the WWC BRS hybrid where it's a 4-month cycle before turning on lights, you'd hit it again. With
I would start dosing this stuff daily for 2 weeks before I turn the lights on, and I would continue afterward. It's so cheap, it's so easy. My peers and mentors, like worked for almost all of them. I can tell you right now, Elliot's starting up like a new 900-gallon tank, and he's like, man, I just ran into the same thing you did, which is this green water out of nowhere. It's so funny. So if all of you think that we don't run into the same problems you run into, you're wrong. We do. And we do call each other. and Elliot, I'm like, well, hey, dude, I think you should try the Microbacter 7 because that was the thing that was my problem. And then he shows me 10 of those big liter jugs. He's like, yeah, man, I'm hitting it already. I'm like, wow, all right, dude.
Full
so there you go. All right, well, I don't know. So if you were to ask me, man, I'm also going to tell you, I think that not considering, especially these sterile types of tanks that were starting up that don't have pests and don't have ick and don't have all kinds of disease and pests in them that from the beginning, because we don't want that. Now we need to fix the problem of like biological diversity. You know, it's funny because again, you look at like KZ, you know, has been dosing bacteria for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, like,
just not telling us what's in the bottles and stuff.
Yeah, you don't tell you exactly why it works. You're like, oh, well, I guess somebody was ahead of us a little bit. I don't know, but I think if you look at this 10 years from now, there'll be so much overwhelming anecdotal evidence, probably very little scientific peer-reviewed science, but so much anecdotal evidence that this type of thing solves those types of problems, and preventively you could spend $70 and just not even have the problem, or at least much less.
Yeah. So if you were going to do it again, would you use the UV like you did at any point, or would you go straight to Microbacter?
So that's going right into the next question. So we got 2 UVs here. Let's show the picture. We got a UV, you can't see one of them, but I got one for fish and one for algae. People ask this question, do you need 2? And I'm gonna change my position on this one a little bit. But also, the question here is, can UV prevent the ugly stage?
Right.
So that's like a question you're seeking an answer to that nobody
Completely
really
prevent.
knows.
Yeah.
I'll give you, there is no
It's not a black and white.
Nobody's
like,
proved
it
this.
does or it doesn't.
I'll give you my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think that UV will help the ugly stage. It will slow down growth of algae to some degree.
Right.
You can argue that maybe the fish can now keep up with it a little bit better. But I think what it's actually going to do is limit the expansion of that biological diversity in the beginning. Like adding it later when it's already covering all the surfaces of everything in there, like I don't think it's going to change that.
Yeah.
But during the time where it's trying to spread, I think you're going to slow it down. And so we've done some experiments. You're going to see a updated experiment on actually this very
topic.
Soon here. Maybe as early as next week.
Yeah, I think we're going to shoot it next week.
But maybe 2 weeks you'll see it then. I think we'll shoot it next week. But I just don't think UV helps with the ugly stage. There's all kinds of other reasons to do it. But in fact, I would say don't turn this on during the beginning.
Past that phase. Yeah.
No, I think it will actually slow down, especially if you're running dry rock and you're trying to build that biological diversity.
Yeah. Well, then the question is like, what if you're not going to use it for this like algae, whatever, in the beginning? Then when you do turn your UV on, which one are you going to choose? Fish, an ick, parasite, or UV algae bacterial growth?
So this has kind of been my position in the past, which is like once you understand the different flow rates and concentrations,
that they really matter. Yeah.
Yeah, that it really matters. Well, you have to pick one and decide which one you're going to do, or you can pick the middle and do neither.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and to waste your time.
You can't bounce back and forth like a few hours this way and a few hours that way, and that's basically the middle, and that's not solving anything.
Okay. But like, is that just Ryan Randy trying to sell you 2 UVs? No. I mean, like, I'm trying to answer a question.
Yeah.
You know? And so this is my position now, knowing that most people probably don't want 2 of these, and I just put 2 on mine. And if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have. I'd do one. And I'd do it this way. I would set it up just for protecting the fish. Slow flow rate. I have 2 return pumps, because the flow rate here is like, you know, less than 1 times turnover for the fish.
What do you think about what's more important to you in terms of whether it's algae or whether it's fish, and having a tank full of fish that have been quarantined and, you know, you spent lots of dollars on, you invested a lot of money in, they're your pets, that might be your top priority. Yeah,
I'm going to tell you too, this is blasphemy, so get ready, cover your muffs, right? Is QT, it's not QT versus UV. It isn't. Unless you're some kind of perfect monk, like QT monk. Because it's like, yes, you have to do the proper QT, right, in your house, right?
Yeah.
You have to treat them for all of these things, make sure you don't have any of them. And then, not a single snail can go into your system without QT. Like what is it, like 6 weeks or something, 40 some odd days?
Yeah, 70.
Not a single
70.
snail, not a single coral, not a single fish, not a single drop of water. Not even like your hand can't go from one place without like sterilizing it. You can't dry it off and put it in there. Nothing, man. And no piece of or a container of water can be within at least 10 feet of that one, and even further if ventilation is actually connecting these things to. So the reality is that's very few people, man. This is the QT monks that are
absolutely
do this,
QT monk. Somebody meme that QT monk.
Okay, and if you are doing that, be proud, man. You're doing it right? But also recognize that, man, you are amongst the few.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Very small percentage.
Do those things. Do them to the best of your ability, but also, like, if you can't do every last one of it, you can do parasite control using UV. All right, so this is where I would install it now. I'd install it with two return pumps. One of them is really slow. It's probably almost half times turnover, like not 1 times turnover, 0.05.
Right, super slow.
Right, and then if the other one fails, this one will keep water going through it. It's kind of limping it along, essentially. Well, nothing will die because of this, right? Keep the water heated and filtered enough until you can fix that problem. So it's 2 return pumps, always a good idea.
2 return pumps, 1 UV on 1.
0.5 turnover or somewhere in there. I got to figure out the rate, but it's really slow.
The rates are on the UV sterilizers too, yeah.
And then if I run into dinos or whatever problem, I'm going to have this on a DC pump and I will crank it up to about 5 times turnover, which is roughly every 12 minutes or so, and it will cycle most of the things in the tank. Again, the flow rate's on the recommended by the manufacturer here,
so you're using the same UV for a dual purpose, but only when an issue rises.
Yeah, I'm not trying to prevent the issue per se of dinos or whatever, but if dinos pop up in my tank, and it's the type that it will solve, the type that like dissipates into the water at night, it's like 100%
Bump up your pump
solution.
speed, yeah.
Like all that problems you've been trying to solve, done, like in a single day almost, right? Okay, and so in that case, I can just crank up the flow rate to solve that problem, and once the problem is solved, the bacterial bloom or whatever it is, I can just turn it back down to the fish rate.
Yeah.
And so if you're super nerdy and you're worried about, well, what about the fish in that few times? What's really going to happen isn't that like all of a sudden, unless you got a real problem, you're going to break out, in which case you can turn it back again.
Solve an issue, yeah.
It's the big problems is like the ick is probably in your tank and you probably don't know it, and it's probably just not a problem for you until your heater fails, and then any stress event, and the temp drops to 72, and then all of a sudden it just explodes in the tank. Right? So that's really what you're trying to protect against in most cases, is a stress event that lowers the immune of the fish. And all it really takes is one fish to become susceptible to it, and then it like allows the population to explode. Each one of these turns into 200, the 200 and so on, and it just like takes over the tank. All right, so in that case, what this is trying to do is prevent that. So I'm totally okay solving my dyno problem and then just swinging it back.
Bumping up the pump speed, yeah.
Now, if money's unlimited, get 2.
Get 2.
Yeah, I don't know.
Keep the problem at bay
that
all
isn't
times.
the case in most cases.
Right.
Money's unlimited. Get 2. Have a closed loop for one. Have it set up right.
But
you know?
protecting your fish is probably that's probably like my number 1 priority too.
Yeah.
Keeping your fish, that ick management solution.
Yeah, nobody wants to kill other fish.
No.
And I watch it. It's
I
really
named
sad,
him.
man. Yeah, it's really sad.
Speaking of fish.
So that is my take on this. We got 6 minutes left.
Okay,
All right.
let's at least see the fish before we have to go.
We did see the fish up front, I think, right?
Yeah, but you were
Nope.
talking the habitat for the fish on this.
Oh,
topic.
the habitat for the fish. Let's do that 6 minutes. All right. Okay. So do you have that video of those fish swimming around that I gave you earlier? The link?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, all right. There it is. So watch this. This is a video we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
These are wrasses that are fighting, but they also live
Look at
not
the
a bunch of rocks.
Look at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just these little mounds of rubble and rocks, and there's places for them. Those are beautiful fish, by the way. Just so there's a place for them to go. That's their habitat.
Yeah. All right. So that's where they live. And so this was something that Elliot told me about when we added some wrasses to the tank.
Well,
He's
now
like,
go back and look at your aquascape. Does it look like anything like that? The original
no,
one?
does any of our aquascape look like
Just a
sheets
bottom of rubble.
holy rubble?
Zero. No.
No.
And the sand, yeah, because we have the sand that's flat and they don't go hide out in there.
Well, very few people
Yeah.
look like that. All right, and so I was like, well, I can do one better then, I guess. I mean, now that I know.
Well, you were having issues with your fish too, right?
Yeah, like, finding enough habitat for some of them, right?
They have no place to hide.
And so I built these. And it's
Look
kind
at
of hard to tell. And some, like the one on the left ended up being too tall. I didn't end up using it. But I ended up putting them in the tank. And so then what we did is I just glued together a bunch of rubble that created a bunch of those little
chisel
holes,
a whole
right?
bunch of stuff together and then reform it.
Originally, I let it get too high, and then I found that actually I want to keep it, just a few
3
inches
or so,
high.
yeah.
And I just started putting it in some of the spaces that were open space, and it has a bunch of holes. You can come in from the top and from the side, and whatever. You just kind of glued it all together, and make a little network.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, the fish moved into them because that's their natural habitat and where they want to live.
We had a name for those too. I forget what it was.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah, but like so.
So now they're not. They have a place to hide. They're not getting picked on. They have a place to sleep at night. They're not getting tucked in these like just thin little branchy, crevices and whatnot. They actually have a place to feel protected.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, this. How did I miss this? I don't know. So if you got wrasses and stuff, not the sand ones that live in the sand, emulate their natural habitat.
Yeah.
Why not?
Make a couple islands.
It was really easy. It was a fun project too.
Even put a coral or two on
All right.
there.
And so I also did it with this other one here too. So I had that acclimation box on the side there. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. I can see a couple of those little things on the bottom there. I didn't realize this was
All
a
your
video,
habitat
actually.
things.
But in the you can see that box over there.
The acclimation box, yeah.
Yeah, so in that one, I tried to emulate something a little different. These guys like to perch in there. So it was the yellow antheas, and they like to kind of perch and hang out in an overhang. So I created something tall where they like to go around, and it worked out really well.
It did work out well.
And so I think that was a really cool project, is to find ways to figure out what the natural habitat of the fish is, and figure out a way to add it to your tank.
And don't be afraid to chop up some rock and re-glue it back together to accomplish it.
Create your own thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do a little video on how I did that actually on
probably a good
Facebook.
idea.
So, by the way, all the stuff you've seen today, I try to upload semi-frequently. Lately, I've been doing it every morning.
Yeah.
So you can see it every kind of morning, a new thing that you do to the tank. So you can follow if you want. It's BRS TV guy. So I got to run. It is now 1:30, and if I'm late, I'm going to be in big trouble. So
thank you, Eric, for the $5.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's burn through a couple questions.
Here we
real
go.
quick.
Questions. While you guys are hanging on here, we're rapid fire. How long has it been running now? I think water was 6 months.
I think it's actually like 7+ months now. Yep.
Okay. Are algae scrubber better than skimming or refugiums?
Tomorrow, you'll
Find
get
out.
some insight into that.
Yep.
So watch tomorrow's new series.
Are there going to be more Investigates YouTube videos or just product videos and showcases? So he's speaking to that point of why do you guys keep putting out the same content?
Yeah, so like Randy and I have been working on this other thing you'll see tomorrow. So come back tomorrow and watch the new series. All of us have been working on something different. We've been shooting them, throwing them in the trash, shooting them, throwing them in the trash, trying to like up a quality component. So you know, we like to have demos here for the stuff that you guys buy. I think it's on us to give us the best information you can get on the stuff you want to buy, but also other stuff.
Yeah, and you might see a new format to some Investigate stuff we're working on in the wings too.
You gonna see that new set as well?
With a huge refugium, do you want to use socks? Seems like it would be starving the refugium.
The refugium becomes a giant detritus mess without the socks. We don't have them here, and I'll tell you that's the case. So for me personally, I would use the socks just to make sure that like the refugium just doesn't. The refugium becomes.
If you look at the bottom of the 160 refugium, there's just piles of detritus.
I would
decaying.
As a way to keep the refugium cleaner, I personally would use that.
Are algae scrubbers better than? Oh, we already talked about that one. Are there going to be more? Oh, these are still up there. There you go. Oh, here we go. What are those leopard-looking like fish in the tank behind you? Those are Burbonixanthius.
Often called blotchies.
Yeah, blotchies.
Those guys are like 5 years old now, I think, you know, or something like that.
They're the size of perch and bluegill around here that we like to catch.
Call them like sunfish now. Yeah. All right, so I only hit half of the updates here, by the way.
We've got more content.
We kind of rambled on for a while about some of this stuff,
cool.
And hopefully it was interesting. So next week, you can expect to see the other half, and I'll probably add some more in.
Yeah.
And if you want to see this stuff in little bite-sized pieces, you can follow me on Facebook, BRS TV Guy. Super easy to find.
Don't forget to check out tomorrow. I'm pushing it out. Should we tell them what time?
Noon?
Noon.
Right.
Noon tomorrow. New thing drops. Whole new concept of BRS TV.
In fact, I was going to leak it on Facebook like 3 hours early. I didn't tell you yet.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so you can see a little earlier if you want. But the people that follow,
links in the description.
They're most engaged. You know, so I don't know, like, you want to see a daily pulse and tank. It's going to be different. It's going to be something like we've never done before. So starkly different. I can't wait to see how much you love it or hate it.
And actually, after tomorrow at noon, we'll just put that first video right here.
Oh, you'll be able to see it right here starting tomorrow.
All right, guys.
Right on. All right. See you.